The Community Environmental Council, or CEC, is focused on reversing climate change, repairing the damage, and protecting local communities from extreme weather effects. We do this by advancing rapid and equitable solutions to the climate crisis. For example, in 2023, CEC established Electrify Your Life, a free service that helps residents, businesses, and nonprofits switch to clean energy solutions like EVs, EV charging, solar, and energy-efficient appliances. And since 2021, via EVs for Everyone, CEC has partnered to provide free, in-depth EV assistance to help community members overcome access barriers and find an electric vehicle that fits their budget and needs. Our team makes it easy. We work with you one-on-one to provide information on EV options, including financial incentives, charging and range, so you can save money and be part of the transition away from fossil fuels. Through these programs, CEC has helped nearly 1,000 residents, businesses, and nonprofits affordably make the energy switch to efficient solutions. You'll hear more about EVs for Everyone tonight and how we can help you navigate any EV roadblock. This webinar and the work that we do takes place on the unceded territory of California, home to nearly 200 tribal nations. We acknowledge and honor the original inhabitants of our many regions, including the Chumash, the original inhabitants of Santa Barbara, where CEC's environmental hub is located. We also acknowledge the impact that colonization has had globally on Indigenous peoples and the environment. The extractive violence of colonialism leads to the disruption of natural systems and the climate change we are now experiencing. May our work contribute to reparation and support resistance to colonial oppression everywhere. We welcome you to add your own acknowledgement to the chat, and we thank you for taking the time to learn and steward the land. This webinar is being recorded. It will be available on the CEC website about a week or two after this webinar. Everyone who registered will receive a link to the recording and other resources in a follow-up email. So feel free to rewatch or share with friends and help share the word. Here's an overview for tonight's webinar. Sean from CEC will kick us off by sharing more information on electric vehicles, EV charging, and then after the presentations, Sean, with the support from our colleague Alan and myself, will do a round of Q&A. We encourage you to share any questions you have in the chat box throughout the webinar, and we'll try and get to as many as we can tonight. And with that, we'll get started. I'm pleased to turn it over to Sean MacArthur, CEC's Climate Programs Manager.
Jen, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our webinar on electric vehicles. My name is Sean MacArthur. I'm a Climate Projects Manager at the Community Environmental Council. Today, I want to share information that can help you navigate common roadblocks to purchasing an electric vehicle. I recently purchased my first EV, and even though I've been providing EV purchase guidance through CEC's Electrify Your Life and EVs for Everyone programs for almost 2 years now, I learned a lot by going through the process myself. I plan to share everything I learned here with you tonight, so when you're ready to make the switch, it's as easy as possible. I'm very passionate about driving forward zero-emission transportation solutions because we know that the transportation sector is one of the biggest sources of greenhouse gas emissions. So choosing to drive electric is something that each of us can do to fight this huge problem that affects us all. I'm sure many of you here tonight are seriously considering purchasing an EV, already have one, or know someone who does. I welcome you to share in the chat what attracts you to EVs. If you really like a certain model, tell us which one and why. Slide. To give you an idea of the topics we're going to cover today, we first want to make sure everyone is aware of the incentives and rebates available when buying electric cars. We also want to help you find ways to get electric vehicles at more affordable prices. So we're going to explore buying used electric vehicles and also how we can understand lease agreements. And lastly, we want to facilitate access to charging. Charging infrastructure has been a big obstacle to the adoption of electric vehicles, but we want to offer ways to make it more possible to install chargers in folks' homes or workplaces, and also make it easier to locate public charging. Before I go into detail, I want to give you a brief summary of the types of electric vehicles and charging. We covered this information more deeply on our last EV webinar, which I welcome you to join or to watch the recording of if you missed it. We'll include it in the follow-up toolkit in the next week or two. There are three types of electric vehicles: battery electric vehicles or BEVs, plug-in hybrids or PHEVs, and fuel cell electric, also known as hydrogen fuel cell vehicles. Battery electric vehicles run on electricity only and produce no direct emissions. Plug-in hybrid vehicles combine a gasoline engine with an electric engine, so you can use only electricity for short distances, and when the battery runs out, the gasoline engine automatically turns on. These vehicles tend to have long ranges and are much more efficient than standard gas cars. Hydrogen fuel cell vehicles use hydrogen gas to generate electricity. They emit only water vapor as a byproduct, and the refueling process is as fast as filling up a tank of gasoline. Next slide. Here are the three types of EV chargers. First is a level 1 charger. This is the most basic and plugs into a standard 120-volt outlet at home. It's slow to charge, but may be sufficient if you just need to recharge your car overnight. And there's level 2 chargers. It plugs into a 240-volt outlet, such as the one you use for a washing machine or a clothes dryer. It charges much faster than level 1, so it's more ideal for charging your vehicle while you're at home. And then level 3 chargers, or direct current, aka DC fast charging. This is the fastest and is found at public charging stations. You can recharge an EV in a very short time. It's ideal for long trips when you need to charge quickly while on the move. Lastly, I want to remind you why choosing an electric vehicle is so important. Driving an EV is a powerful way to take climate action and protect the planet for future generations. Unlike gasoline-powered cars, which release carbon dioxide and other harmful pollutants, EVs produce zero exhaust emissions. By driving electric, you're helping to reduce air pollution, making the air cleaner and healthier for everyone, which can lower respiratory issues and pollution-related illnesses. Cleaner air also makes urban spaces more enjoyable and safer, improving the overall quality of life. On top of the environmental benefits, EVs also offer significant financial advantages. Maintenance costs are typically lower, charging costs are much cheaper than fueling with gasoline, and as charging infrastructure continues to expand, it's becoming more convenient to charge. Plus, there are various incentives and rebates available that can make electric vehicles actually more affordable. One of our main goals is to help you navigate these incentives and rebates. Let's explore the options currently available. The first is a federal tax credit from the government and a handful of rebates offered by our local electric utilities. Additionally, there will be future opportunities to access state grants to help with down payments. The federal tax credit offers up to $7,500 for a new electric vehicle with income limits of $150,000 for single filers and $300,000 for joint filers. However, there are restrictions related to critical battery components and manufacturing, meaning that not all electric vehicles will qualify for the credit. It's important to confirm with the dealer that the vehicle you're interested in is eligible. For used vehicles, the restrictions are less stringent, and you can receive up to $4,000 in incentives. We highly recommend applying for this credit at the point of sale, which allows the dealer to deduct it from the vehicle's price, so you can receive the full benefit upfront. If you're a PG&E customer, you may be eligible for up to $4,000 in rebates when purchasing or leasing a used electric or plug-in hybrid vehicle. Additionally, if you meet the income requirements, PG&E will automatically provide a $700 rebate towards the purchase of a charger. Some key requirements include the rebate applies to used vehicles only. The vehicle must be registered to the same address as your PG&E account, and the application must be submitted within 100 days of the purchase. Edison offers a similar rebate, providing up to $4,000 for the purchase or lease of a used electric or plug-in hybrid vehicle with the same requirements as PG&E. Now, if you live in the city of Santa Barbara, you're automatically enrolled in Santa Barbara Clean Energy, or SBCE, meaning you can combine the incentives from both SBCE and Edison. SBCE offers up to $4,000 for a new or used electric vehicle. So if you're eligible for both programs, you could receive up to $8,000 in total rebates. By applying the federal tax credit, you could see savings of up to $12,000. Many used EVs can be found for a price very close to this number, allowing you to drive electric for a very, very low cost. If enrolled in Central Coast Community Energy, or 3CE, you can receive up to $4,000 for a new electric vehicle and up to $3,000 for a used one. The requirements are similar to those of other electric utility incentive programs. Additionally, many of these companies, including 3CE, offer incentives for installing home chargers. 3CE even provides a free assessment to help you determine the next steps for installation. We'll go over this process in more details later. Access Clean California helps low-income households verify their income to qualify for EV grants. In the past, California EV grants have offered up to $7,500 for battery electric and fuel cell vehicles and $7,000 for plug-in hybrids. Leases have also qualified, which can significantly reduce the total cost of ownership. New grant programs like Clean Cars for All and Driving Clean Assistance Program are expected to launch this year, with an expected income eligibility threshold of 300% of the federal poverty level, which is about $45,000 for a single filer. Access Clean California streamlines the income verification process and makes it simple to apply for these grant programs. When I purchased my EV, all I had to do was apply through Access Clean California's income verification process, check the boxes for which programs I want to apply for, and wait. And within a couple of months, I was verified and received my grant. So we know this is a lot of information, but we're here to help. Our EVs for Everyone Purchase Guidance Program provides one-on-one assistance, where we reach out to help you identify the incentives available to you based on your location, income, and other factors. We can also assist with applications for incentive programs, help out with dealing with dealerships, and help you build a budget and really answer any questions that you have about EVs. If you'd like assistance, all you need to do is fill out the form at the QR code on the screen or at the link in the chat. We'll reach out to you within 3 business days. When people think of electric vehicles, they often only consider new models. However, used EVs are an excellent, cost-effective option that can be surprisingly affordable. First, available incentives and rebates can significantly lower the price of a used EV, making the upfront cost much more affordable than you might expect. Additionally, EVs tend to be more economical in the long run. While the initial price may be significantly higher than a gasoline vehicle, the lower maintenance and operating costs make up for it. In comparison to gas-powered vehicles, EVs have fewer moving parts, so there isn't a whole lot that can break down. Hence, a used EV requires less upkeep and is less expensive to maintain in the long run. Even though a used EV may not have the same charging capacity as a newer model, charging with electricity is still much cheaper than filling up with gasoline. To give you an idea of what's possible with incentives, we've gathered examples of actual used EV prices available online. For instance, if you're a low-income resident of Santa Barbara, you could potentially purchase this used all-electric Chevy Bolt for just $3,500 after implying available incentives and rebates. Teslas are another great popular option, with used Model 3s typically priced around $24,000 to $25,000. For example, with a starting price of $24,888, you could bring the cost down to $12,888 after applying available incentives and rebates. If you're not ready to go fully electric, perhaps due to limited access to charging at home, and prefer the flexibility of a plug-in hybrid, you can still benefit from incentives. For instance, we found a 2017 Chevy Volt priced at $12,949. After applying all available rebates, the total cost could drop to just $1,949. They're just a few examples, but as you can see, it's possible to find affordable electric and plug-in hybrid vehicles. We understand that coming up with a down payment can still be a challenge for many. If you're in need of a new vehicle but aren't in a position to buy, leasing an EV is also a great option to consider. Leasing comes with several advantages. Most mechanical issues are covered by the warranty. Many incentive programs still apply to leased vehicles. You have the flexibility to trade in a car at the end of your lease. Additionally, we'll explain how you can financially benefit from the vehicle at the end of the contract through the first right of refusal, which gives you the first opportunity to purchase the car once the lease term ends. Now, some drawbacks to leasing include the inability to customize the vehicle to your liking. Additionally, most lease agreements come with mileage limits, which restrict the number of miles you can drive. And if you frequently commute long distances or take long road trips, leasing might not be the best option for you. It's also important to remember that leases can be difficult to break if your financial situation changes, and leasing may be challenging if you have poor credit. When reviewing a lease agreement, there are several key components to understand to make informed decisions. The first is the capitalized cost or cap cost. It's the initial price of the vehicle for leasing, including the negotiated price and any additional fees. The residual value, the estimated value of the vehicle at the end of the lease. A higher residual value typically leads to lower monthly payments. The lease term, the length of the contract, which is usually measured in months, for example, 24, 36, or 48 months. It affects both the monthly payments and total lease cost. The money factor, the leasing interest rate expressed as a decimal, to calculate the equivalent annual percentage rate, or APR. Multiply the money factor by 2,400. The monthly payment, the amount you pay each month, determined by the capitalized cost, residual value, money factor, and lease term. And mileage limit, the maximum number of miles allowed per year. Exceeding this limit incurs additional charges. And then the down payment, capitalized cost reduction, an upfront payment that reduces the capitalized cost and in return lowers monthly payments. The acquisition fee, which is a charge for initiating the lease, which may be negotiable and can sometimes be rolled into monthly payments. The disposition fees, it's a fee charged at the end of the lease if you return the vehicle instead of purchasing it, covering the cost of preparing the car for resale. Excess wear and tear charges, potential charges for any damage or excessive wear to the vehicle at the end of the lease. And an early termination fee, and that is a penalty for ending the lease contract early. Being familiar with these terms will help you better evaluate leasing offers and choose the best option for your needs. If you need assistance with the down payment, many dealers offer the federal tax credit as an option to help reduce it. The federal tax credit can provide up to $7,500 off the lease of a new EV. However, the eligibility requirements have become stricter, meaning that fewer manufacturers qualify for this benefit. Leasing an EV, however, allows manufacturers to use a similar credit, the commercial tax credit, which provides incentives for a wider range of vehicles. Sometimes this discount is applied upfront, while in other cases it's factored into the residual value. Before signing any lease agreement, it's a very good idea to request a printed copy to review all of the materials. Most incentive programs provide financing options for EV leasing. However, since many incentives are offered as rebates, you often need to wait to receive the funds until after the purchase. Despite this, it's worth considering. Some of our CEC employees have successfully accumulated tax credits, grants, and rebates, allowing them to lease a car at no cost. As mentioned earlier, there are financial benefits to consider at the end of your lease, particularly related to the residual value of the car. The residual value is the car's expected worth at the end of the lease period. At that time, you'll need to compare the residual value with the car's actual market value. If the residual value is less than the actual value, you have a few options. The first is to purchase and resell the vehicle. You can buy the car at the residual price and then sell it for a higher price, potentially making a profit. If you don't have enough cash on hand, you might consider financing the purchase with a loan. Sell your right of first refusal. You can sell your right of first refusal to a third party. If someone is willing to pay more than the residual value, they can purchase the car from the dealer and you would receive compensation for your right. And then return the vehicle. If you prefer, you can choose not to buy the vehicle. Simply return it to the dealer who will inspect it for any excess damage. And if the car is in good condition, this is a straightforward option. Now, charging is a key factor to consider when buying or leasing an EV. There are various charging options available, whether you choose to install a charger at home or rely on public charging stations. We aim to provide you with all the information you need to determine the best charging solution for your situation. If you're a homeowner, installing a charger at home is highly recommended and often simpler than you might think. First, you need to decide whether you need a level 1 or level 2 charger and choose a convenient installation location, such as your garage or near your parking spot. A level 1 charger can be plugged in directly to a standard 120-volt outlet, similar to how you plug in your phone charger, so installation is not required. For a level 2 charger, you'll need to ensure your home has enough electrical capacity to support a charger. You may need to consult an electrician to check if your electrical panel needs an upgrade and to find the best installation location. The good news is that if an upgrade is necessary, there are rebates and incentives available to assist with the costs. We can help you identify which incentives you may qualify for in your area. If you can't install a charger at home or if you rent, you most likely need to rely on public charging stations. Fortunately, the charging infrastructure is expanding rapidly. Apps like PlugShare and ChargePoint are great tools for locating nearby charging stations. These apps help you find charging points at shopping malls, parks, gas stations, and other locations. They also allow you to plan your routes for road trips and ensure you can reach your destination without running out of charge. Most current EVs also will actually tell you where you can charge along your route if you place a long route, and it'll tell you all the stops that you need to make without having to do all these extra steps. Finally, we're committed to expanding the availability of public chargers. If you live in a multifamily housing, consider informing your property manager about the advantages of installing chargers. You could also direct them to the Community Environmental Council, CEC, for information on available incentive programs. Some key benefits to mention include increased property value, enhanced tenant attraction and retention, potential for additional revenue, regulatory compliance, access to incentives, and demonstration of environmental responsibility. All right, we're going to go ahead and head into the general Q&A segment of today's event. We'll be answering questions that you've shared in the Q&A box. Looks like we have some answered questions. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in now. I'll start going over some answered questions. See from Tom, electrical costs seem higher than gasoline. Is that true? It's actually not true. The electrical costs might seem higher, especially if you're doing charging at home. You might see an increase in your electrical bill, but the cost of charging in public is actually significantly lower. I pay about a quarter to a third of the cost of gasoline when I charge up my vehicle. So it also depends on where you live. In the city of Santa Barbara, for example, they have fixed costs at certain times of the day. So choosing what time to charge is a really great option. If you want to charge at the lowest cost, you want to go during off-peak hours, which is what I always try to do. If I charge during the middle of the day, a lot of times that will be the off-peak hours, especially if you have a high mix of renewable energy in your city. Another question: how do cradle to grave costs and pollution output compare for EVs versus gas? As Alan mentioned here and Jen, over the lifetime of the vehicle, the emissions are actually significantly lower for EVs than for gas. Of course, you do have the upfront emissions that you get for actually producing the vehicle and the batteries, but the lifetime emissions are lower. Robert said he has a Nissan Leaf, which they've loved and driven since they bought it in 2016. The range is only about 65 miles or so. So looking for a new EV, ideally with one ranged above 260 miles. The Volkswagen ID4 Pro, that's actually a great vehicle. That was one of the vehicles I considered when I was looking for an EV. There's definitely a lot of really good options out there, and we'd be really happy to help you find some. So if you're interested, the link for purchase guidance is linked in there. So go ahead and fill that out, and we can reach out and give you some assistance. So we have an open question from Ed. You just leased a Kia Niro, have a level 1 charger, need help finding an electrician and determining if you need to upgrade the panel. So this depends on where you live. We'd be happy to point you to some resources for your specific area. So if you reach out to us, we'll have in the toolkit we send out contact information. You can also go to cecsb.org/electrify your life and fill out our intake form. We offer assistance for free for EV charger installations. There's also programs that will actually go out to your house and do a site assessment directly for you, which is a really good option, especially if it's free. It really depends on where you are, but definitely would recommend going for a level 2 charger. But we could also talk offline and discuss the option of just continuing with level 1. It might be just a fine option, especially if you need a panel upgrade and all of that. It might make more sense. But it really depends on your situation, how much you drive. All right. Got some questions in the chat, I believe. Yeah, Tom, I agree. We definitely could use some more like gas station style DC fast chargers in public. That would be ideal. We're trying to, through outreach, we've been trying to help increase the amount of DC fast chargers and just generally level 2 chargers in public in areas like community connections, places where people gather, like stores and things like that. So we're definitely trying to increase that and get some more of those resources at those charging stations. Also, another question from Tom: electrical costs in California. One major contributor is taxes. We have higher tax rates in California on electricity. It's also a larger state, and we have a lot more infrastructure, so typically is why the cost is higher, unfortunately. Okay. Question in the Q&A: what do you know about temperature changes in the functionality of EVs? EVs definitely will hold less battery capacity at different temperatures. If you have a really high temperature, they could be run less efficiently. They also don't do the best in super cold weather, just due to the chemistry of the batteries. This is improving. People are addressing this with any technology, as you are, kind of earlier in the life cycle or the adoption when the technology is relatively new. It's not quite perfect, but it is being worked out. They're working on doing things like providing or coming up with new technologies and new chemistry for the batteries to make them work better under those conditions. Okay, should I buy an EV now or wait until my gas car is at the end of its life cycle? It's a question we get a lot. It really depends. I think some people really like the idea of holding onto their gas car as long as possible. Um, and I think that makes a lot of sense if you're planning on scrapping the vehicle. But if you are planning on selling it to somebody selling your car as a used vehicle to somebody else that's going to use it, it still will get used. So I think if you can make the transition now, it makes sense. That's my opinion. Some people disagree, but I think that makes a lot of sense. To me. Are you aware of any major inconveniences around charging? Do we have enough fast chargers in our area, or are there frequently long wait times? I have had to wait one time for a DC fast charger in the 6 months that I've owned my EV. Of course, I do have a Tesla, and Teslas have more charging than any other brand. So that's one of the key considerations that I took into account when purchasing my vehicle. I wanted to go with something that was going to have a lot of charging availability in our area. So I definitely think that's something to consider. It's up to you what you want to go with. Electrify America, for example, is a Volkswagen brand. They have a lot of charging, but it's increasing all the time. There's new chargers being installed in Santa Barbara near Chase Bank as we speak. So there's plenty of chargers around town. It really depends on where you live, but we'd be happy to show you some resources that I've mentioned earlier that you can check on the chargers in your area. I've also recently drove to Yosemite and I was able to stop along the way without being inconvenienced. I didn't have to go significantly out of my way. It was all along the route, all the way there and back.
Yeah, Sean, I'll also add, I'm one of those people who drives an EV and I solely rely on public charging. So there are times that I've gone to LA, for instance. I've had to wait for a charger, but I'm not always looking for a fast charger. There's a lot of level 2 chargers around town. In addition to level 3 chargers, they're located in areas where I do like grocery shopping or even like where my kids do their sports practice. So a lot of the time there are a variety of locations that you can plug in, and then PlugShare, that website and app that Sean mentioned earlier, is a really great resource. It'll show you the public charging network in your region. You can see where the chargers are. You can see if they're in use, if there's a line, what the fee is, etc. So there's a lot of ways to make sure that you can get the charging that you need depending on where you're going.
Yeah, thank you. Another question from Peter: are they standardizing the charger so all EVs can be charged anywhere? Not necessarily. They are building adapters that you can use for different chargers. There's multiple different types of chargers. There's the NACS, which is the Tesla charger. It's a North American charging standard. J1772. My car, for example, comes with a J1772 to NACS adapter, so I can charge at those stations. So it's a little complicated. The different types of chargers don't necessarily matter. Most of the chargers will be using J1772 or NACS. Some use a different type called CHAdeMO, but that's pretty rare. I haven't had any issues. I don't think many people tend to. But yeah, I think a lot of people are starting to adapt or adopt the NACS. So I can see that happening. But yeah, I'd say it's not really as much of an issue as many people think, especially since you can get the adapters for a very low price. Another question: is it true that the battery of an EV will only last 8 years? No, that's not true. A lot of people think that is the case. There's like a internal combustion engine as you use the vehicle, the efficiency gets lower over time. It's the same thing with EV batteries. They get less efficient. They don't hold the charge as long, but you don't have to. They're not going to just fail on you. It's very rare for them to just fail on you. Most EVs will have a warranty through 8 years. If they drop below 75 to 80% of the battery capacity within that time, then they'll replace the battery for free. So no, they don't just stop working around 8 years. Typically last significantly longer than that. Are there any adapter kits that are around $100? Yes, there are. It depends on the adapter, what you're looking for, but there's definitely some available. You can purchase on Amazon. They're very easy to find. Not as big of a deal as you might think. Another question about installing chargers for resorts, golf clubs, level 2 chargers. Can they make the cost back? Any rebates for businesses to install more? Yeah, one of the main rebates currently available is through the state of California. It's called Communities in Charge. Currently offers $3,500 base incentive up to 75% of the cost to install chargers. It's per port. So if you installed a charger that had 2 plugs, you would get twice the benefit. Typically, businesses will get a large percentage of that covered, and then they can actually charge for the electricity. They usually have a little bit of a markup so that they can make their profit back. Some people will just charge whatever the rate of electricity is. That's, for example, a lot of city sites and government-owned chargers will just charge whatever the electricity costs. Private businesses tend to have a little bit of a markup. So you can definitely make the money back, and they can be a good asset. Question from Robert: do car companies still have a limit of cars they can sell in a year that qualify for rebates? No, that is no longer the case. The Inflation Reduction Act changed that. There's no longer a limit. For example, the Tesla, they hit their limit and people could no longer access the tax credit. They removed that, and you can now access that. Unlimited amount of vehicles can qualify. For used EVs, you can only qualify for the first purchase. So if you're like the third purchase, for example, and somebody had previously gotten the credit, then you can't also access that. So that's something to take into account. You want to make sure that you can actually get that credit when you purchase the vehicle. Another question about rebates or incentives is it true that there will be more incentives in the new year, will they include panel upgrades and chargers? Yes, there will be new incentives in the new year. There is a California grant program. I mentioned in the slides that it's coming out this year. I just got an update earlier today. Should be coming out somewhere in Q1, quarter 1 of 2025 in the Tri-County area, which is very exciting. That's going to be a grant program. It's income qualified. It's a little different than a rebate. So it's upfront, and it won't include panel upgrades. As far as I know, it might include chargers. Like, for example, the CVAP program was a California grant program that offered a free charger installation or a portable charger. I opted for the portable charger when I got that grant program. So it may include one of those. It really just depends. So time will tell, and we'll see. Other programs are expected to open in areas like the Ventura County, for example. Clean Power Alliance is coming up with their own programs for installing EV chargers, doing panel upgrades. Santa Barbara Clean Energy is coming out with their own programs. 3CE currently has a program. So new programs are coming out all the time, and the best way to really stay up to date on that is to be in contact with us. We pretty much have an awesome team, and they're pretty much always have the latest information on what incentives are available. Can the Communities in Charge program fund EV chargers at multifamily units? Yes, they can and they will. Communities in Charge is specifically for community connections, which are places where people gather, and multifamily units are considered community connections. They only allow for the installation for shared use areas, though. So if you have assigned parking, you won't be able to get those installed there. But there are some other programs that are coming out soon that are going to be focused on multifamily that you might be able to qualify for if that's the case. Any other questions? Right, how long does it take to get a full charge on a DC fast charger? What is the comparison with level 1 and level 2 chargers? It's a great question. Um, Level 1 chargers will charge about 3 to 5 miles of range an hour. So if you're charging overnight, let's say for 10 hours, you could get 30 to 50 miles of range. It's a lot of people's daily commute. So that's why I was mentioning earlier, it might be a good option to just use level 1 charging if you don't do a ton of driving. Level 2 chargers, faster, they charge faster, they anywhere between 10, 25 miles in an hour. So definitely faster. Good option if you do a lot of driving. It's way more convenient than having to go to a gas station if you can just charge where you live. And then DC fast chargers, they charge it depends on the vehicle. Some vehicles will have a lower acceptance rate. An acceptance rate is the rate which electricity can be taken in. It's a good way to describe it is not the amount of electricity that's being pushed in, but it's the amount that the vehicle is actually sucking from the charger or from the grid. So it depends on how fast your vehicle can do that. But typical time ranges between 30 minutes to an hour, depending on your acceptance rate. My vehicle takes about 25 to 30 minutes for a full charge. Okay. Cost per site assessment in Ventura County. The cost range depends on who is doing the site assessment. There's contractors that we could send you to, and they can give you a quote over the phone prior to coming to the site. It really depends also on availability. There is a little bit of a shortage of contractors that do this work. So trying to increase that, it's one of the things that we're focusing on. And one of our grants is doing more job training so we have more folks to be able to do this work. But yeah, it really depends. I can't give you an accurate range of amount of time it'll take to get that work done, unfortunately. Another question, will the salesperson at the dealership know about all of the rebates and incentives? In my experience, no. I've called multiple dealerships to ask them about incentive programs, and they typically don't know all of the incentive programs that are available in their area. And that's one of the things that we help with our EV purchase guidance program is helping dealerships understand grant programs, rebate programs, tax credits. Some dealerships aren't registered for the tax credit for the direct transfer. So we try to educate dealerships as much as we can, but also just work with the individuals to make sure that people are not, getting kind of screwed over by dealerships. Any specific free chargers in our area? There are some free chargers. Really depends on where you live. There's some in Santa Maria. There are a few in Santa Barbara. It depends on the location. Some will be free, but they'll require you to be staying at a hotel, for example. There's a good chunk of free chargers in Ventura County. But you know, like I mentioned before, the cost is definitely lower. So even if it's not free, it's still significantly cheaper, and you just have to kind of plan around what time you go to charge. All right, I think we're almost out of time. Any last minute questions? Pass it over to Jen.
Alright. Thanks everyone for all of those questions. If any more come up, think of any later, or if we didn't get to any, we will send those with the follow-up resources. But also please feel free to reach out to us. Sean's contact is in the chat. We also want to give a round of thanks to all of those who are sponsoring and partnering with us on all of our electric vehicle efforts. The Department of Energy, Ecology Action, EVs for Everyone. And a big thank you to our production team for working behind the scenes to make this webinar a success. I also wanted to take one more moment to share about a few upcoming events and opportunities that we would welcome your participation in. National Drive Electric Week is happening now through October 6th. We'll share a link in the chat so that you can find more Central Coast regional events and webinars where you can meet CEC's EVs for Everyone team, test drive the latest EV models, and get all of your EV questions answered. On October 26th from 1 to 4 p.m. at CEC's Environmental Hub in downtown Santa Barbara, we'll host our third youth climate workshop focused on advocacy. Activities will include a zine workshop, a segment on how to give public comment, and a Q&A with elected officials about their experiences with advocacy in local government. Snacks will be provided, and feel free to share this opportunity with kids in grades 7 through 12 or their parents. Last, on October 23rd from 1 to 6:30 p.m., we'll host the Living with Fire Summit, also at CEC's Environmental Hub. And this summit is for practitioners, policymakers, land managers, and other people interested in building regional wildfire resilience. Presenters will share progress, successes, and challenges of wildfire resilience projects at various stages in our region, as well as future opportunities for innovation. And these events and more are on our website at cecsb.org/events. And this link will be included in email that we send out after this webinar and in the chat. In order to reverse the climate crisis, we need everyone working together. And if you're interested in taking climate action, please join us. You can visit our Take Climate Action page to subscribe to our e-newsletter, learn about upcoming events, and engage with some of our most popular programs, like the CEC Climate Stewards, our 9-week certified climate leadership course that equips you to take climate action in your community. Use the QR code on the slide or the URL in the chat to learn more. And this brings us to a close. We'll leave this slide up for a few moments so you can take note of the information. But please have a wonderful evening, and we look forward to seeing you all soon again.